Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. This episode today is brought to you by the Great Southern Gun and Knife Show. Go check out where their shows are at greatsoutherngunandknifeshows.com. With me in this episode of my show is Representative Brett Geymann in Louisiana. There's an issue that's going on there that he is on. I'm going to tell you, this is the representative you want to hear from if you're interested in hearing more about eminent domain as it pertains especially to carbon capture. Representative Guyman, thank you so much for being on today's show. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me, William, and I appreciate your patience in letting us get this interview done. I know it's been a wild and crazy day.
That's okay. I've dealt with everybody before. I know how session gets. You made a statement earlier that I thought was very profound when you said, "Look, if I don't see if what's right in front of me, I can't." I think that's how you said it. That's like you can only see what's right in front of you right now.
Yeah,
And
it's coming
from what
out.
I
It's
understand,
coming out of a fire hose, is what I like to say. We drink out of a fire hose right now, especially when you're on Natural Resources Committee and you're navigating through all these bills that are so controversial.
and right now it's eminent domain. So that seems to be the hot topic of this session. There's some other opinions from other people on things that are going on, but I'm hearing it's eminent domain. What about you? What are you working on pertaining to that?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think overall, the carbon capture issue itself is a hot topic, has been now for a number of years. I think probably starting in 2023, we were beginning to see votes on protecting certain areas from it, and like Lake Maurepas. I call that the where it originated. The opposition really originated for the Lake Maurepas area, and that was in 2023 when we began to vote on bills for that. So the whole issue of carbon capture obviously is on the front of everybody's mind right now, because as these projects begin to filter into more areas of the state, more people get engaged, and you generate additional opposition. But the issue, and this is my opinion, but the issue within that subject matter that is the number one hotbed important issue is the issue of eminent domain, the ability for a private company to take use of your property without your consent
Mhm.
for a carbon capture transportation or storage project.
What gets me about that carbon capture on eminent domain, and just for the record, I don't see the reason for carbon capture because I see the uses for it otherwise, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So I don't necessarily agree with it with with the tax credits and everything there, but I do understand that it's kind of I don't want to say that it's here to stay. I know that the governor's fighting hard for it, and there's a bunch of groups that are fighting hard for it. But where my line in the sand is as eminent domain pertains to it, because if they start using eminent domain, I don't agree with it, especially as a business. I don't agree with it for a government taking our land. But when they when they use eminent domain and they basically trap our mineral rights underneath a carbon capture, plume, if you will, we lose not only our mineral rights, but we lose our property rights. Is that kind of where you're growing with that?
Yeah,
Did I get that right?
no, I think, yeah, I think I agree with your perspective on it. And look, it's, you kind of said you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. You can, I think you can legitimately say you could separate from the carbon capture debate and focus on the eminent domain piece,
But yeah,
just basic private property rights and the foundation of this country, all the way back to biblical times. I mean, this is something that is just right. It's the right thing to do, and that is to not let people lose use of their property. And so I think you can even be for carbon capture and still be against the use of eminent domain for carbon capture and for a carbon capture project. And I think that's where we're seeing this shift right now, is that let's focus on eminent domain. Let's make sure people have protection for their private property. And if they want to do the carbon capture project, that's a whole nother debate. And if a landowner wants to sign a voluntary lease, William, for that, that's a whole nother debate. The safety issues, a whole nother debate. I mean, those are all issues that ought to be debated and discussed, and have been to some extent. But man, you can't get away from this private property rights. And I really wish the industry would look at it through that lens and be willing to quit fighting that particular issue and just understand that there's nothing more important in this discussion than the right to own property.
See, I agree with you 100% on property rights, and we agree on the whole carbon capture thing. I think it should be two separate arguments. And of course, if business and industry can find people that want to use use their land or sell their land rights, I have no problem with that. That's their right to do so. What legislation do you have to help? I want to say navigate. I'm going to use the word navigate because since I've known you talking about, and we've been talking about this, you are an extremely professional person that really tries to navigate not only for the good of the people, but it seems like you also try to do what's good for Louisiana as it pertains to business and industry. So your legislation seems to navigate that a little bit better. Can you tell us about that? What you're doing to protect eminent property
Yeah,
rights?
sure. And thank you for the nice words. And I wish some of our folks on social media would take time to get to know me and visit with me and ask questions about the issue with me before they post hateful things on social media. And I just had to throw that in there because it's a total distraction to the issue and the battle and the fights that we are in to solve some of these legitimate issues. It's just a total distraction. And I wish people would stand down and quit doing that. If they don't support me, that's fine. But good grief, man. Let's have adult conversations. But let to your point. Last year I had a bill that would would prevent the use of eminent domain for the pipeline transportation of the CO2 if it was going to carbon capture and storage, if it was going to be stored. And so that was the first kind of attempt at dealing with the pipeline side. This year, Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson has the bill, which has that component in it from last year that I carried. But also, he went into the pore space or the unit, the area underneath the property where the CO2 is going to be stored. He went into that component of it as well. And his bill takes care of the pipeline, transportation, and the storage unit underneath the people's property and does not allow eminent domain for either one of those. Right now, we have an 85% required voluntary lease agreement on the unit. His would essentially make it 100%. And then on the pipeline side, we currently have a common carrier status where the company has to show that it's transporting and doing something for public benefit, a product that's available to the public, which does raise the bar very high for getting eminent domain for a CO2 project, but potentially they still could do it. So those are, William, that's we've been clawing away for what now 3 years to get what we have. And then Mike Johnson, Pro Tem Mike Johnson from Louisiana, not the real Speaker of the House, but the Pro Tem of the State House, has a bill that takes both of those components of the carbon capture issue and essentially it bans the use of eminent domain completely. Which I'm going to go back to this point. It's the right thing to do. Okay, it's not, his bill does not say you can't do carbon capture. It doesn't say you can do carbon capture. It says you can't use eminent domain for the use of carbon capture. And I think it's just the right thing to do.
What I like about this is it's a step in the right direction. A lot of people, and I feel bad for you that there's people bashing you on this, but I would like for people to understand that we can't necessarily win the war by how shall we say this, by trying to have a scorched earth type of system. We can win the war better by fighting the battles. And it sounds to me like some of your legislation and some of Mike Johnson's Speaker Pro Tem of the Louisiana legislature's bills are taking steps in the right direction, baby steps, big steps, however you want to gauge it, that are winning battles, which helps us eventually win the war on this. And I think that we've lost you here for a second. So if you might just have to leave the studio and then come right back in for a minute. We got you back. We got you back there. No worries. It might. I don't know. How is the Wi-Fi there at the Capitol?
Oh yeah, it must not. It must have been that. Can you hear me now though?
Hockey, you're coming in perfect.
Okay. All right. Well,
What I was
we're back.
saying,
We're back in the game. We're back in
we're
the
back
game.
in the game. What I was saying, when I had lost you there for a minute, is I wish I wish the people that are bashing you realize that and this is kind of my words, and I'm going to say it a little bit differently than I said it a minute ago, but you're trying to fight, you're trying to win a war for the people of Louisiana. It may not look like that to the people that are bashing you, but I think your strategy is winning the smaller battles to be able to win the war for the people's rights or people's properties rights. Is that another way to look at this?
Look, William. Yes, I think that yes, and it's easy from the outside, and I'm going to defend the folks on the outside. It's easy when you're in the grassroots movement. Man, you're amped up. You're angry. You're like, how can these people do this to us? And I mean, you're angry, and 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 they just want us to make it go away. Okay, and I totally understand that. But in this building, and in the capital of Washington, D.C., and in the police jury building, and in the school board building, you have a whole bunch of people that don't always agree. And so you have to claw away and battle and scratch and get wins and get wins and get wins and just keep working your way to the point that you win that war, as you said. But you have to fight a few battles along the way. And so the criticism comes from, well, you supported a bill that was for 85%. We want it to be 100%. Well, guess what, William? So do I. But you can only get 85%. So you take that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's because it's better than no percent. It's
Right.
better than no
Exactly.
percent. And
It's
so
no
that,
different than war. If you get 85% of the battlefront, you're only 15% to go.
yeah. And look, the argument is what's still unconstitutional. And I don't know that I disagree with that either. Okay. But until we get to the point of having a jury weigh in on that, we have to provide as many protections as we can. And so we have clearly made some great steps forward from where we were in 2023. And the criticism comes for whatever reason, and why I'm the target, maybe because I'm the chairman, maybe because I don't know why. It doesn't matter. I just wish that the grassroots could unite and get behind the legislators, and then work with the ones who are not on their side, or the ones who are indifferent, and try to convince them to be on their side, instead of just throwing grenades all day long at everybody, because it feels good. You get to ha 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 on Facebook at night, you go look at all, yeah, what made him, whatever, but it's not productive. And so I urge everyone to stand down, be strategic, get your message out in a professional way, because that's what resonates in this building. If you are not professional in the way you're approaching everyone, you are blocked out. And William, that you're here every day watching what goes on. People who are unprofessional and just throw grenades all day long, they just become noise. And so my plea to everyone is, take a breath, focus on the issue, focus on the battle in front of you, and just continue to claw your way to the victory line, because that's what it takes in this. This is the system that we have in this country, and it's not perfect, but it's the best one on the planet.
Absolutely. I'm gonna make 2 points before I ask you the next question for you about other legislation that you're working on. The other 2 points are, one, circling back to the governor. You know, people want this to go away, and I completely understand it. Like you, I think that carbon sequestration is just a dumb idea, in general speaking. But you've got the governor, you've got a lot of very large, powerful groups that are pushing carbon capture in our state, and they're not gonna win the battle if they don't try to find a, how should I say, a professional peaceful path to get there. And then I'm going to bring up the Senate race real quick before I ask you the other question, which is it's like the Senate race right now. People are bringing carbon capture into the Senate race, and I made this point the other day. They're focused on a Senate candidate that's going to save, or that's either responsible for carbon capture or is going to get rid of carbon capture. And the reality is they're going to be a federal elected senator. They're not going to even be looking back at carbon capture in Louisiana. I'm not not trying to take credit away from them, but generally speaking, the people in Louisiana need to work with the elected officials in Louisiana, whether they agree or disagree. They need to work professionally and peacefully with them in Louisiana, that's the grassroots people, especially to get carbon capture or protect their their domain or their property rights, but get rid of carbon capture if that's what they want to do. Did I hit the nail on the head on that one or
Yeah,
not?
yeah. I mean, look, and whoever wins the Senate race, um, they're one senator. Okay, they're gonna have the same challenges there that we're having here. Is you're one rep, okay? You're one senator, and so you have to build consensus. You have to get to the majority view, okay? And remember that people who are elected around the state are reflections of their district because that's how they got elected. Okay,
Exactly.
and unfortunately, they don't all think like me. Okay,
Right.
in my opinion, but they probably are glad that everybody doesn't think like me. And so but I'm a reflection of my district and the people that I represent. And so we have to build consensus, and we do that by educating people. We do that by showing them, what we believe is right. And it sometimes, man, William, it takes 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 years. I've seen battles in this building that have taken 5 and 6 years, and then all of a sudden it flips and everybody is on the right side. But it's you have to claw away. And I've been in the grassroots movement. I love grassroots. I love it. So I'm not being critical of any of my friends out there right now who are just lobbing grenades. It's just it's not effective. And you can threaten to unseat people, and you can say I'm never going to vote for you, and you can say you're corrupt, and you're whatever. You can do all of that. It makes you feel really good for the moment, but it accomplishes nothing. So the
Let's
grassroots movements that I've been involved in, fighting Common Core back in the day in 2010, 11, 12, somewhere right in there. We fought fiscal responsibility back after the housing crash in 2008, and two big grassroots movements that I was involved in. And you got to we call herd and catch. You have to rein everybody in and say, okay, everybody behave, because as soon as you go out and throw a grenade, they tune us out, and
you
and,
you
and
you lose the ears of
you
people
lose the
that are in
ears.
office when you get like that. And like you said, when they go to DC, they're one of 400 something or one of 50, and
Hmm.
the national issues forget about the state's issues. So being nice and friendly with the people in Louisiana gets a lot more, gets a lot more done. What other legislation are you focused on that's going to help protect people's rights and find a way to kind of steer through this?
Well, that is I'm a co-author of Speaker Pro Tem's House Bill 7, which is the no eminent domain piece for the carbon capture storage and the pipeline. I'm one of I think there's 5 or 6 of us that co-authored with him, and that's really what our focus is right now. I have some other legislation that works around the edges a little bit, but that is the piece right now that everyone, I would ask everyone to be focused on, like totally focused on House Bill 7. It comes up next Tuesday in committee. That's March the 31st. That is the first step. The bill has to get out of committee for it to stay alive. And if it doesn't get out of committee, then there's not a lot of great opportunities. There are opportunities, but they're just not very good opportunities after that. So the best thing that could happen is we manage to get that bill out of committee. It's going to be a very, very tight vote. And so I would ask people to like reach out to the House Natural Resources Committee with a nice email, a phone call. If you know one of the reps, if they're your rep, like just go visit with them by phone or email or however you want to do that, and just be professional and tell them why you want them to protect your private property rights, and keep it on private property rights and not on the carbon capture debate as much, but private property rights are important to everyone, no, regardless of which side you're on. And I think it's a winnable fight for us, but that, in my opinion, that's what it's going to take.
Do you think one last question for you, or maybe there might be two, but do you think that if we get a win on property rights on House Bill 7, you said, right?
Hmm.
If we get a if that gets passed, get it through the House, get it through the Senate, get it signed, is that going to be a major victory for eminent domain, for people's rights, property rights, and for the people of Louisiana? Is that and for this session?
I think it's a national frontline headline. South Dakota is kind of the highlight of the private property rights battle on carbon capture. They were able to pass essentially this bill that we're doing now, except the way Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson drafted this one, it also includes the pore space, because we actually have storage in Louisiana and South Dakota doesn't. They just have the pipeline. So they did half of what we're attempting to do. It took them, by the way, to everybody listening in the grassroots movement that gets frustrated, it took them 3 years. 3 years. They didn't do it the first week, the first month, the first year. 3 years. The Supreme Court had to rule against the pipeline company that it was not a common carrier. In other words, it wasn't transporting a public product. It wasn't for the public benefit. And they launched off of that Supreme Court case the next session and were able to pass a ban of eminent domain for a pipeline transporting CO2 for storage, which is what we're trying to do. But it took 3 years and a Supreme Court case. And they also had 14 new legislators come in that following session. And so they just had, it was what I call the perfect storm. And a lot of my friends in the grassroots movement say, well, we're going to flip the seats. And
There you are. I got you back there. I know it resumed. It's we're back on.
yeah, we definitely need to upgrade our internet service, don't we?
Get some
So,
rivet.
so, yeah, so I was saying, I think when I got cut off that, my friends in the grassroots movement believe that, well, we'll just go flip a bunch of seats next session and then next term, and then we'll come back and we'll have a bunch of new people who will all be for us, great thing to strive for, I guess. But I think, that's a really big hill to climb, to unseat people, number one, and then to assume that they're going to be with you when they get here. Again, I go back to most people that are elected are reflections of their district. So generally, when you leave or you go on to another office, or you get defeated, which is not real common for incumbents. There'll be open seats, of course, that you can flip to somebody more pro property rights. That's probably the best avenue to take. But again, they typically are reflections of their district. We see it here all the time. I'm in my
Right,
18th year, William, and generally the person that replaces the person that was there previously is very close to them in the way they vote. Very
right.
close to them, and because they are a reflection of their district. So if it's a very conservative Republican district, you're most likely electing another Republican conservative member to replace that person. And so it's not as easy as just saying we're going to just flip a bunch of seats. So then we have a Supreme Court case, perhaps. The Plaquemines case that we just had is a great tool for us to make our argument. And then I know there's a lawsuit now on eminent domain for carbon capture that may get a hearing at some point. Those are things that we may get handed to us as a tool, but you can't count on that right now. So the best method is to continue to reach out to legislators, especially right now, the ones on House Natural Resources Committee, and just visit with them about why they should vote for House Bill 7 and leave everything else alone for now. Like, let's go fight this battle. And then the week after, you can engage in something else if you feel the need. Let's fight this battle right now today. And that's what I'm asking everybody to focus on, and just be professional, because it's what works. It's what works. Just, it is. It's a fact.
I love your approach because it really just comes down to property rights. Like I said earlier, the governor wants it, big industry wants it, the carbon credits are there. And if we can separate that, like you're saying, from from property rights and retain people's property rights, at 100% eventually, then it's a win for the people. And then government will figure out whether they have to pay people to use their property for carbon capture storage, or whether they're going to use it on public property, or however they're going to do that. But I like the approach. It's a smaller battle when you put it that way, but a bigger victory if people can come together in a professional, peaceful way, like you're saying. I love it.
Yeah, and look, it's so the hearing is next Tuesday, March the 31st. If anyone listening wants to participate in person, then you're welcome at the Capitol. We will welcome you. It's your building. You have a right to be here. You will get a chance to speak if that's what you want. I assure you that you will be treated, as good as we can treat you. Now, doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with you. And a lot of times
Right.
people come and visit us and they go to a committee hearing and they go, "Oh, those guys were just terrible and whatever." And it's, they didn't agree with us. And, that's going to be the case. You're going to have,
Right.
at least half of the members aren't going to agree with your position. Do our very best to make sure that you are here and you are treated fairly and you have a right to speak, and your voices will be heard. And so if you can be here, please come. And
I'll be
and
there.
and yeah, and then if you can't be here, of course you can watch it online. And we'll see what happens on Tuesday. But I appreciate you taking time to visit about this issue and reaching your audience and encouraging them to get involved in this.
Representative Geymann, any final words before we close out?
No, man, I appreciate you, William, and your patience, because I know we've been trying to do this now for a number of days. In fact, probably a number of months, but we finally got it, at least a little snippet of it done. So,
We'll do a follow-up here down the
yeah,
road.
yeah,
Hang on
yeah.
one second while I ask everybody to please share this interview with somebody that that's in the fight for their property rights, who want to stop eminent domain on corporate property rights, or corporate encroaching on personal property rights, that is. And get in the fight, but professionally, peacefully. Please share the interview, share the podcast with somebody who wants more information on this. Thank you so much.